Hello to all you sailors out there and welcome back to my channel. It's your boy Bandit Banks, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you the entire history of Sea of Thieves from a slight idiot's perspective. If you do enjoy the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as this video did take quite a while to make. And do keep in mind I actually put a decent amount of effort into this video. Like, I bought books. Like, I actually went out and bought physical books to learn about the history of Sea of Thieves. So don't go judging me in the comments because I missed a few things, which I know I probably did. But without further ado, let's hop straight in to this video of the history of Sea of Thieves from a slight idiot's perspective. Long, long ago, in the Caribbean far, far away, there were some completely normal islands. Then boom! All of a sudden, there was a suicide fog surrounding those islands. It's called that because if you go in it, you die. Apparently the PG-13 name for the suicide fog is the Devil's Shroud, but I prefer the other name. Oh, it actually looks like there's people inside that suicide fog. Wonder if they were the ones who caused it. Who knows? But it probably was them. Well, actually, would you look at that? Looks like there's two types of civilizations that live in the suicide fog. One with fins and one without. So we have in the suicide fog the fish people, commonly referred to as the merfolk, and the ancients, or old people, who I'm going to refer to as the Roberts. This is because I play with an old-ass dude named Robert, and I know he's going to get slightly upset when he sees this. Now, these old civilizations, they got up to a lot of old civilization things. The Roberts, for example, were really profound in finger painting. They were good at making stone statues. They made some really rare and valuable butt plugs. And surprise, surprise, they used ancient coins as their currency. And it's just so hard to put a price tag on the ancient coins because of how valuable they were to these civilizations. However, in today's market, if you get the value pack, they're about 1.06 cents each Canadian. Now, the fish people also got up to some pretty cool stuff. You know, making underwater shrines, fortresses, singing, mermaid things. Oh, by the way, that song is how the fish people communicate. The original one was called the Merfolk Song, and it was beautiful, filled with joy, happiness, and all that good stuff. The Roberts were able to understand this by crafting physics-defying earrings made out of really pure pearls that allowed the sound waves entering their eardrums to be refracted and Google translated in such a way that they could understand what the fish people were talking about when they sang their fish people song. Now, the Roberts and the fish people, they got along really well at this point. They were homies. Such homies, in fact, that the Roberts agreed to help the fish people in defeating their biggest enemy, the oldest, largest kraken called Old Mother. Apparently the Sea Queen and Old Mother used to be homies, but they got into a beef, so in classic overreacting fashion, Old Mother decided to eat the Queen's friends at least once a century. So moving right past that, it's clear that the fish people were not able to defeat Old Mother by themselves, so with the help of the Roberts, they were able to effectively put a chloroform rag over Old Mother's mouth, knock her out, let her sink to the seafloor, and then chain her with some Harry Potter type magical chains that would never break, because they couldn't kill Old Mother because her skin was too thick and they couldn't deal a mortal blow, so they essentially chained her to the ocean floor and waited for her to die of old age. Now, there is a place where the Kraken did fall, but I just can't seem to remember the name of it right now. It's around this time that one of the Roberts fell in love with the Sea Queen. I guess it's a thing for the Finn, but the Sea Queen ended up feeling the same about him. Unfortunately, given that there was a species boundary there, this love couldn't happen. Then the Sea Queen came up with a genius idea that involved mermaid gems, which were those gems capable of containing the magic of the fish people. Anyone who's seen a Disney movie at this point knows that this probably isn't going to end well. So the Sea Queen goes ahead and uses that mermaid gem to turn the Robert into a mermaid. And it works, actually. He turns into a mermaid, no problem. However, they accidentally release COVID-20 when they do this, which instead of attacking the lungs, attacks the vocal cords of any mermaid scratched by one of the infected fish people, robbing them of that merfolk song that is so dear to them. So instead of masking up, What the remaining uninfected fish people decide to do is banish anyone with COVID-20 out of their civilization. These infected and banished fish people become known as sirens. For pretty obvious reasons, the sirens end up becoming bitter. They do end up finding a new voice, but it was a sad boy, depressing song this time, unlike the happy fish people song that they used to have. But at the very least, the Siren Queen and King were still together and in love, so at least there was that one really positive and happy thing. You can probably guess where this is about to go. The Siren King wanted to become homies with the Roberts again, as he did leave them for the Siren Queen, so he went up to try and bargain with them. In return, they chained him up, threw him into a vault, and bound his soul to the chest of eternal sorrow. This sparked a war between the Sirens and the Roberts, with the fish people taking the Roberts' side. The war between the Sirens against the Roberts and fish people ended up getting pretty ugly. With any Robert that was captured by the Siren Queen, they would trap their soul and body inside a cursed mermaid statue. She would then turn those poor souls into crabs, eels, and clams that could go on land and fight the Roberts there. One of the Roberts finally decided to put an end to the war and managed to send all the Sirens away. However, the price was great for this particular Robert, as they were given a really horrific curse. So horrific that the Roberts had to lock her remains away in a vault to prevent it from spreading to anyone else among the population. So, with the Sirens being sent away, the war was over, and the Roberts and the fish people went on to live peacefully, until all the Roberts died from COVID-21. After the Roberts had died off, it was really just the fish people living inside the suicide fog. The Sirens had been exiled and were not there really anymore, so it was peaceful inside the Sea of Thieves for a time. But in the world outside the suicide fog, there was a pirate dreaming of his way through. This pirate's name was Ramsey. The suicide fog was famous in the outside world, known that anyone who dared go in it would die. Nevertheless, Ramsey would spend his days on Old Sailor's Isle dreaming of a way through, and somehow, looking at the edge of the suicide fog, he was able to come up with a map through it. Now, given that Ramsey had a wife named Athena and two young twin kids named DeMarco and Lassetti, he decided to do the responsible thing and abandon them in order to go into the suicide fog. So the pirate lord prepped his ship and brought along 3 crew members with him: a nerdy one, a strong and dumb one, and a greedy one. Keep your eye on the greedy one, he becomes important later in the story. So they set sail into the suicide fog using the map the pirate lord had drawn. After days of sailing through, which is a bit much if you ask me, because I was able to cross that bitch in 6 minutes flat, they finally emerge onto the other side of the suicide fog in true Sea of Thieves fashion, right into the fucking storm. While inside the storm, they manage to find an island with some sort of shelter above it where they can hide from the storm and relax after their long trip. Once the storm passes, they take a look around and realize that nothing is the same here. Everything up to and including the stars is different than the world outside the suicide fog. So, they go on a journey. They find treasure, they discover the history of the Roberts, they bury treasure, they discover new animals, they find monsters, they fight monsters, and they map everything that they can. The nerdy one, whose name is Mercia, decides that some of the buried treasure needs to be hidden using riddles. So the stupid riddles that we sometimes get when trying to find buried treasure on massive islands are entirely her fault. Some of the other treasure is buried using treasure maps. But after a month, they can't hold any more treasure, they've discovered all they want to discover, so they head back through the suicide fog to the outside world. Upon returning to the outside world, they dock their ship, unload their treasure, and tell the world about the Sea of Thieves, but don't give them the map. No one really believes them, they think it's a lie. That's when Rathbone, the greedy one, that I said was important, steals the map and gives it to another little weasel by the name of Stitcher Jim, who quickly distributes it to every pirate he can find. This starts the race to the Sea of Thieves, where pirates really start coming through. Realizing that other pirates can now get through to the Sea of Thieves, the pirate lord takes the Magpie's Wing along with his original crew, including Rathbone, who he is still unaware is a traitor, back into the Sea of Thieves, where they set up a hidden hideout to hide all their treasure on what is now known as Thieves Haven. As other pirates also begin plundering the loot of the Sea of Thieves, Ramsey and his crew stash all of the treasure they can collect on Thieves Haven. It's also in this hideout where a lot of cool things that we know and love from the Sea of Thieves are created. Shan, the big and stupid one, does something pretty smart. Realizing he can't fit in a cannon, he makes an expanding metal that allows pirates to fit in a cannon and also somehow be launched without being blown into 1,000 pieces. It's around this time that Mercia discovers the civilization of the merfolk. With the help of a map found in a shipwreck, Ramsey and Mercia go to a small island close to the Devil's Shroud. Once they reach the underwater caves of this island, they begin to hear a song, the Merfolk Song. They discover a pair of those old earrings that we talked about in the Roberts section, put them on, and they could understand what was being said. Around this time, the merfolk come up and greet them. The merfolk ask for help in retrieving 2 captured merfolk from an evil captain. Ramsey agrees to help, and after a bit of perseverance, they manage to find and free these 2 captured merfolk. As a thank you, the merfolk agree to help out Ramsey in 2 separate ways. First, any pirate that is thrown off his ship based on his own stupidity or a completely stupid cannonball will be escorted back to their ship via a merfolk. Second, the merfolk bring Ramsey to the remains of Old Mother. They allow Ramsey to take the magical Harry Potter infused chains off of Old Mother and melt them down to be used at his own discretion. Ramsey decides to use this unbreaking magical metal as locks for all the chests in the Sea of Thieves, for which he and he alone has 1 pair of keys that can open. Ramsey and the people working for him manage to get a significant amount of treasure into these magical chests. Due to a growing anger among all pirates at Ramsey for hiding all the treasure in places that are physically impossible to get, there's a parley called at Golden Sands Outpost to discuss the future of the Sea of Thieves and how it should proceed. At this parley are all of the major Sea of Thieves crews that are roaming at this time. Ramsey explains that he pretty much wants the Sea of Thieves to be a pirate's paradise with no outside governing control, but he wants to keep control of the gold so that greed doesn't get to the hearts of the pirates who just want adventure. However, given that they are pirates, most of them are driven by greed and want the pirate lord to release all the gold he's locked away in the magical chests. During this argument about what to do with the gold in the Sea of Thieves, a kraken attacks the ships that are parked at Golden Sands Outpost. All the crews rush out and they begin to fight it, with the pirate lord fighting especially hard. With some help from a pirate named Briggsy, the pirate lord is able to successfully wound the kraken to the point where it has to retreat. As the kraken is going down, though, one of its tentacles destroys the pirate lord's ship pretty much entirely, and in a true Lion King style scene, the pirate lord is hanging off the ship, and Rathbone, holding onto him, steals the skeleton keys, reveals it was him who's been a traitor all along, and releases the pirate lord to drown. However, thanks to a group of merfolk, Ramsey survives, with them bringing him to Mercia, unbeknownst to Rathbone, who thinks the pirate lord is dead. Rathbone then heads back to shore with the skeleton keys, announces that Ramsey is dead, and takes this moment to found the Gold Hoarders, a trading company that takes all the magically locked chests that Ramsey made during his time with the magical metal and opens them, giving half of the gold inside to the pirate and keeping half for themselves as payment for opening the chest. The Order of Souls trading company was also founded around this time by Madame Olivia. She had a vision in the outside world that told her to go to the Sea of Thieves. Upon arriving, she worked with the Gold Hoarders to set up the Order of Souls trading company. To repay the Gold Hoarders for helping them set up the company, the Order of Souls uses their magic to search the memories of skeletons brought to them for treasure maps. They then give these treasure maps to the Gold Hoarders. Outside the Sea of Thieves, the main company that was running the waters was called the Grand Maritime Union. Naturally, when they heard about the Sea of Thieves, they wanted to take it over. They send a fleet of ships into the Shroud, only one of which barely manages to squeeze through. And the second it does, pirates who recognize the ship markings go over and dumpster it, with only a few members managing to escape the onslaught on a rowboat. One of those being Molly, the leader of this fleet. They row to a nearby island where Molly is swiftly abandoned by all the other members of the Grand Maritime Union. So, Molly decides to board a passing pirate ship, become one of the crew members, and learn about the pirates' way of life. After a few months of learning this, she sets up her own trading company called the Merchant Alliance. This company's goal is to trade goods between outposts and go out and get live goods such as animals. The next major thing that happens is someone, for some reason, decides to go on top of the highest hill they can find, bury themselves alive, and this turns them into the ferryman. Somehow. The ferryman's job is to bring back pirates who have died in the Sea of Thieves and return them to the world of the living. Another pirate by the name of Pendragon is also starting to brave the waters of the Sea of Thieves around this time. Thanks to a special sword given to him by the Order of Souls, he is able to free trapped spirits from curses. On a particularly rough morning when he, gets killed, and he's on the ferry of the damned waiting to be reincarnated, the ferryman takes a particular interest in his sword. The ferryman takes this opportunity to give him a lantern, which allows him to see dead spirits. During Pendragon's quest to free as many spirits as he can, he comes across the ruthless Greymarrow, who defeats him in combat, steals his Sword of Souls, and manages to reverse the magic so that he can trap Pendragon inside a portrait aboard Pendragon's beach ship at Shipwreck Bay. Also at large around this time is Flameheart Sr., a ruthless pirate who truly believes in freedom upon the seas and the pirate's way of life. To aid him on his quest to become ruler of the Sea of Thieves, he decided to create 4 skeleton lords. Now this feels like a good time to explain the skeleton system in Sea of Thieves. These skeletons are the cursed remains of dead pirates, with normal skeletons not having any memory of their past self. They just follow orders of skeletons above them. The levels of skeletons above them go Skeleton Captain, who is a skeleton that has retained some memory of their former past self and is a little stronger than your average skeleton. Then above that are Skeleton Lords. These are very, very powerful beings infused with magic that can do some pretty crazy shit. They have a lot of health, they retain pretty much their entire memory, they're very smart, and they have a lot of powers, and are able to control every skeleton below them. Anyways, the 4 skeleton lords that Flameheart creates are there to help him on his conquest, building forts, ships, more powerful and cursed cannonballs, stuff like that. However, during the end of his conquest, for an unknown reason, actually, his soul becomes trapped in his skull, which is buried with his body away in a hidden cavern on Flintlock Peninsula, hopefully to never be opened again. Speaking of evil pirates, Rathbone, the greedy asshole who is the founder of the Gold Hoarder, is ridiculously rich at this point. However, he hears rumors of an island called the Shores of Gold just outside the Shroud that supposedly had more gold than anywhere else in the world. Naturally, Rathbone sets sail there alone and manages to make it. There he discovers exactly what was promised, an enormous amount of gold. He loads up as much gold as he can put on his ship and attempts to sail back. However, bringing a ship filled with gold through pirate-infested waters is not a smart idea. He ends up getting attacked and destroyed by who it turns out is Mercia and Eli Slate, another famous pirate roaming around this time. As the gold sinks, Rathbone tries to save as much of it as he can, even though he is drowning, and this unfiltered greed that Rathbone has is what ends up turning him into the Gold Hoarder, a vicious skeleton lord that resides at the Shores of Gold. And holy shit, it's almost been 20 minutes. So let's try to wrap up this section before the 20-minute mark. Here we go. Captain Briggsy goes to the Shores of Gold, she gets cursed. Greymarrow has a beef with Eli Slate, so he traps his soul and his crew's soul forever. The Devil's Roar is discovered by Grace Morrow and her Forsaken Shores Alliance, but Stitcher Jim looks inside the wondrous box of secrets and decides to kill everyone. A pirate named Merrick accidentally discovers an enchanted shanty that summons a Megalodon, and his ship gets fucked in the process. Flameheart Sr.'s son, Flameheart Jr., decides to come to the Sea of Thieves to try to make Daddy proud. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. Though he does meet someone cool named the Captain, but we don't know much about him. Lorena arrives on the Sea of Thieves and finds the Bildrats, and yes, I did read half a book about her just for those few fucking seconds. Ramsey is sorta dead, sorta not at this point, but he's got a magical necklace, so we know that. He decides to found Athena's Fortune, named after the wife he abandoned, and speaking of Ramsey's family, his kids, Lissetti and DeMarco, decide to come to the Sea of Thieves and make a name for themselves. And yes, at this point, I do know that I probably missed a lot, but I don't really care, and I want to move on to the part of the video where we pick up and where the game that we play starts. So the story where our pirates take over. So here we go into the next section, which can slow down right about now. So now we reach the point in the story where the game launches, where players take over Sea of Thieves. This next section of the video is mainly going to be the updates. I'm going to try to tie it into the lore as much as possible, but it will mostly be about the updates to the game, which obviously starts on March 20th, 2018 with the launch of Sea of Thieves. When the game launches, the only things to really do in the game are quests from the 3 trading companies at the time, Gold Hoarders, Merchant Alliance, and Order of Souls, as well as conquering the skeleton forts built by Captain Grimm for Flameheart, where all of Flameheart's stolen treasure is held. The first update to the game comes a few months later with the Hungering Deep, which was a limited time event to help Merrick, who got his ship fucked by a Megalodon, take revenge on that Megalodon, with the help of his enchanted shanty and other pirates. Lorinda's trading company, the Bildrats, also starts appearing around the Sea of Thieves at this time in every tavern, represented by Duke, a member of the Bildrats. The Bildrats specialize in limited time events, so they launch a few limited time events back to back to back as their entrance to the Sea of Thieves, by first setting up skeleton thrones that pirates have to sit in either by themselves or with other crew members, then challenges involving killing skeletons that have gunpowder barrels, which have just started showing up in the Sea of Thieves, and finally destroying a certain number of cursed mermaid statues, which were made by the Siren Queen out of cursed remains of the Roberts. Just after this, a pirate by the name of Salty stumbles upon an old cannon created by Red Ruth, Flameheart's alchemist, who made his cursed cannonballs. Salty then gives this cannon to Wanda, a very talented weaponsmith from Golden Sands Outpost. Salty and Wanda then work together to reverse engineer the cannons in order to create their own cursed cannonballs, in which they succeed. Wanda then attempts to sell these cursed cannonballs at outposts, but the outposts refuse to sell them due to their nature. This infuriates Wanda, who keeps creating more and more dangerous cannonballs in hopes that outposts will eventually be forced to help sell them. Unfortunately, during the creation of one of these cursed cannonballs, the curse backfired, infecting both Wanda and Salty. The curse turned Salty into a small undead skeleton parrot, and Wanda into a skeleton lord. This led to the second major update in the game, Cursed Sails, in which Wanda, who had at this point turned into the skeleton lord Captain Warsmith, wages war on the outposts that refuse to sell her cursed cannonballs. Players are tasked with going out to fight these skeleton fleets armed with Wanda's cursed cannonballs to protect the Sea of Thieves. With the defeat of the skeleton fleets in Sea of Thieves, cursed cannonballs can now be found around the Sea of Thieves for players to use. Due to this, the Bildrats do another time-limited adventure that has players shoot cursed cannonballs at skeletons and kill them under those effects. A cursed flag named the Reaper's Mark is also introduced around this time, which, when put up, allows everyone on the server to see your ship. The next update that comes along is the Forsaken Shores update, which introduces the Devil's Roar, originally discovered by Grace Morrow and her Forsaken Shores Alliance. With the introduction of this new region, there is a new outpost and new Devil's Roar themed quests that provide Ashen treasure. The Box of Wondrous Secrets can now very rarely be found on the shores of some islands in the Devil's Roar. As well, the shipwrights in the Sea of Thieves are now making rowboats, which can be found around and used for easier transportation of loot. After this, the Merchant Alliance decides to start moving damageable or precious cargo between outposts, which means there is now a new voyage type for the Merchant Alliance. The Bildrats then throw their next limited time adventure with the Festival of the Damned in order to honor the ferryman. When a pirate dies in the Sea of Thieves, depending on the manner of his death, he can obtain a special colored flame from the Ferry of the Damned. The Bildrats also places different beacons around the Sea of Thieves that can be lit with these flames. The fourth major update rolls around after this, Shrouded Spoils. This update introduced fog, which rolls in from the Devil's Shroud and can engulf islands close to the edge of the map. When driving through this fog, it is nearly impossible to see. There are also now 4 different species of Megalodon that roam the Sea of Thieves and can attack you at any time, with Rare claiming that there's a 5th one. The Bilge Rats then decide to offer 3 new time-limited voyages called Mercenary Voyages, which are essentially just special voyages to keep interest in the Bilge Rats. Also around Christmas time, they offer a special Christmas voyage called a Gilded Voyage, which is essentially a normal voyage from any of the trading companies on steroids. And here we've arrived at the anniversary update. This is a big one. 2 new trading companies are added. First, the Sea Dogs. Founded by DeMarco and Lassetti, who are the Pirate Lord's twin kids, the Sea Dogs run the Arena, a battleground where pirates can battle other pirates in the pursuit of glory. As well, Merrick, who has recovered from his Megalodon attack and officially taken revenge, sets up the Hunter's Call with his wife, Sarek, a trading company dedicated to hunting different species of wildlife around the Sea of Thieves, in particular, fish. The first set of Tall Tales is also offered in this update with the Shores of Gold Tall Tales series. This series leads players on a quest to find the Shores of Gold Island. This island can only be reached with the Shroudbreaker, a magical artifact that contains 4 gems, which, when all together, allow any ship that the Shroudbreaker is on to pass through the Devil's Shroud unharmed. Through this series of 9 Tall Tales, players go out, find the Shroudbreaker, find all 4 gems, learn about the history of Briggsy, Grey Marrow, and others, with the players in the final Tall Tale finally being able to reach the Shores of Gold and confront a great evil there, who we once knew as Wrathbone. Duke follows up the events of the anniversary update with 3 new mercenary voyages, Black Powder Stashes, Dark Relics, and Smuggler's Fortune. Smuggler's Fortune also brings along a new shop, being added to each of the outposts in the Pirate Emporium. It should also be noted that Wanda, who turned into Captain Warsmith and got defeated during Cursed Sails, has now become the Masked Stranger and set up residence on the uncharted I-12 island to collect Reaper's chests and other treasures of dark magic to study them. This leads to the Fort of the Damned content update, where the normal skeleton fort, Old Boot Fort, has been taken over by dark forces and turned into the Fort of the Damned, a player-activated fort that can only be activated by obtaining all 6 Flames of Fate and a Ritual Skull. With the knowledge obtained by Dark Relics and from observing the Fort of the Damned, Wanda's objective is finally revealed as she performs a ritual to release Sir Arthur Pendragon from his trapped portrait on Shipwreck Bay. This leads to the Seabound Soul Tall Tale update, where why Wanda released Sir Arthur Pendragon is revealed, as he is a really nice guy on a mission to free all the trapped spirits in the Sea of Thieves, but he may have accidentally released a pretty bad spirit. After this, the Bilge Rats throw their yearly festival of giving celebration, and then Umbra comes to the Sea of Thieves. She sets up shop on the Lagoon of Whispers and sends pirates out to discover tales of greatness from previous pirates in the Sea of Thieves. The Chest of Rage is then added to the game in the Cruise of Rage update, followed by the Heart of Fire Tall Tale, a tall tale detailing Stitcher Jim's and Wanda's attempt to resurrect Flameheart. Following this ritual, the Reaper's Bones trading company is set up on the uncharted I-12 island. Represented by the Servant of the Flame, the Reaper's Bones stand for true piracy, which is, of course, Flameheart's vision. This Ships of Fortune update also brings along the Emissary system, allowing higher rewards for players who want to represent a specific company through an emissary flag. With the return of Flameheart, the Flameheart World event is added, as well as his Ashen Lords making a return in the Ashen Winds update. Ancient Vaults can now be found by magical compasses from the Gold Hoarder, and Thieves Haven runs were added a while ago, and I forgot to mention it. After this, there are a few Bilge Rats events, including the Summer of the Sea of Thieves, as well as the yearly Fate of the Damned and Festival of Giving. And here come the seasons, so let's get through these quick. Season 1 added Lost Shipment Voyages, as well as Festival of Fishing and the Vault Raiders events. Season 2 added the Fort of Fortune, Trade Routes, and Reapers vs. the World event. Season 3 added Pirates of the Caribbean to the game, as well as the Flags of Friendship, the Plunder Games, Making Mayhem, and Jewels of the Deep live events. Season 4 added the Sunken Kingdom, as well as the Fury of the Damned and Feast of Bounty Bilge Rats events. Season 5 lets you bury shit and shoot off fireworks while hosting the first ever Community Day. And Season 6 really just brought sea forts and closed the arena. And what are adventures? What's Belle doing here? Should I have included more information about it? Dude, this is so deep. It's a pirate game. The Shrouded Ghost is here? Wow, I missed so much information. Oh, fuck this. I hope you enjoyed the video.